So, when I ask, what is Odoo? What comes to mind? Well, Odoo is a bit of everything. Odoo is a suite of business management software that some people say is like fertilizer because of the way it promotes growth. But some people also say Odoo is like a magic beanstalk because it grows with your company and is also magically affordable. But then again, you could look at Odoo in terms of how its individual software programs are a lot like building blocks. I mean, whatever your business needs, manufacturing, accounting, HR programs, you can build a custom software suite that's perfect for your company. So what is Odoo? Well, I guess Odoo is a bit of everything. Odoo is a fertilizer, magic beanstalk building blocks for business. Yeah, that's it. Which means that Odoo is exactly what every business needs. Learn more and sign up now at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
Welcome. If you're a woman who has a sense that there's more out there for you, you're in the right place. I'm Whitney Baker, host of the Electric Ideas podcast. Somewhere along the line of work and kids, life carried on, but I lost track of my truth. I'm on a reflective journey, and that's what this podcast is all about. Each week, I interview a woman who is lighting her own path and offering others hope. Before our conversation ends, we'll share a reflective question for you to explore. Sometimes all we need is a jolt, a fresh idea, an aha moment that connects us to a sense of possibility. This, my friends, is what I call an electric idea. Welcome back to Electric Ideas. I'm your host, Whitney Baker, and today I want to dive in right away to a topic that is important to my heart. So I don't particularly talk about parenting on Electric Ideas, which is kind of confusing sometimes because I do talk a lot about the experience of womanhood and particularly women traversing motherhood. And they're obviously intrinsically linked. And that's definitely the case with today's conversation around inner child healing. So this is what I want you to know about inner child healing. Many moms who feel maybe irritated or reactive or like they're losing their cool more than they want to in motherhood are reaching for the parenting books to perhaps change or control the dynamic with their child. And through years of my own research and awareness in practicing inner child healing techniques, what I've come to understand is half of being the type of present, conscious parent I know everyone in this community wants to be is being self-aware and tending to your own backpack of crap that you picked up somewhere along the way. That is why I'm so excited to have Lavinia Brown on the show today. I'm a big fan of her work. She speaks beautifully into how power struggles with kids tend to flare when a child's behavior activates unhealed parts of moms. Maybe it's a part that learned early on that love or safety depended on being good or quiet or organized, you name it. So sometimes when we have outsized emotions, when we're navigating situations with our kids or our partners or elsewhere, it has less to do about smearing chocolate on the couch or defiance at bedtime and more to do with old patterns resurfacing in a mom's body. Lavinia is a trauma-informed psychodynamic coach who supports moms to become the conscious parents and connected partners they want to be through inner child healing. Through today's conversation, you will learn the importance of integrating unprocessed pain from your past, overcoming unconscious patterns, and learning how to accept and love yourselves, and how that's tied to your ability to stop feeling ashamed, anxious, guilty, or angry in your role as a parent. I hope this deep, honest, raw conversation inspires you as much as it inspired me. Let's get into it. Hi, Lavinia. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. What an honor.
My absolute pleasure. I like to just dive right in to what's at the heart of people's work. And I know that you've said that many of the behaviors that drain a lot of moms today were once, you say, brilliant defense mechanisms that kept us safe as children. I'm wondering if you could start by just giving us kind of a higher eagle eye view of inner child healing, because not everybody is familiar with your work, and just a sense of how maybe unknowingly our past can shape our current experience of motherhood.
100%. I mean, I call myself a psychodynamic coach because what psychodynamic means is understanding, exploring, unpacking how your past affects your present. Everyone's past affects everyone's present. We're not just talking about parenting here. We're not just talking about mothers. It's going to affect you until you've processed it. So what I help mothers do in particular, because what I found personally is that when we become mothers, it's such an initiation. That's often when all of this stuff comes up. You might be in a job that you don't like. You can leave. You might be in a house you don't like. You can move. You might be in a country you don't like. You can change. Relationship. Ditch the guy, ditch the woman, whatever it is. Children, yes, some mothers leave, but it's pretty rare. Often that's when your children who shine that mirror up to that unprocessed stuff, they're not going anywhere and they're right up in your face. So that's when we're really confronted by the parts of our past that haven't yet been processed. And often that is, oh, I'm trying to be this kind of calm, present, kind, conscious, gentle, perhaps mother, and I can't. And I don't understand why. I'm listening to all the podcasts, I'm reading all the books, I've got all the mantras, I know how to breathe. And yet in the moment when I'm triggered, especially, I'm going from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. Why is that? Well, that's because your past and the way that you were parented is coming up. So I help people to unpack that and heal that. And I guess my major tool, answering your question, what does inner child healing mean, is viewing your past through the lens of your inner child. So your inner child is the energy that you have within you, however old you are. You also have an inner teenager. You have the age of whatever that child was or teenager was when something difficult or challenging happened, if it hasn't been processed. So say, for example, you were made to change schools, or you were bullied, or your parents said you couldn't do dance anymore because they couldn't afford it, or they wanted you to do violin instead. And that was really difficult for you. That part of you will still be alive and will be able to be triggered if you haven't processed the feelings that came up for you around moving school, having to drop dance, whatever it was. So we help that inner child feel seen, validated, loved in the way that she didn't at that time. So essentially what you're doing is you're filling that gap between what your needs were and what your parents were able to give you. Because let's face it, our parents were flawed, limited human beings, just as we are flawed, limited human beings. However hard you try, whatever your intentions, you can't meet every single one of your children's needs, especially if you have more than one. So there's going to be a gap. Everyone has a gap. That's where we address the healing in that gap, because that's where the feelings weren't processed. And like we said, if they haven't been processed, that's what's going to get triggered in your present when whatever it is reminds that part of you of that experience.
I'm so glad that in what you said, you mentioned that everyone's past impacts their present, and you said everyone has a gap. I think a lot of people who are in our generation of raising kids will say, I can't think of any major trauma I had, and just kind of eschew the possibility that something happened to them when they were young if it's not this isolated big T thing they can point to. Can you help us understand how this work might be for you, even if you don't think it's for you?
Totally. And you made a really good point. When we talk about trauma, we usually think of big T trauma, which can either be physical, the knife wound, the pelvic or spinal injury, the big scary stuff that ends you up in hospital. Or we might think about big events that might happen around you: war, rape, airplane crash, car crash, like big scary things. So obviously everyone's like, whoa, I haven't got trauma. Or we think about really bad cases of abuse, not being fed, not having our basic survival needs met, being tortured or whatever. This isn't that. Small T trauma, which is what we work with, which is also called attachment trauma in this particular line of work, or developmental trauma, refers to not always the things that were done. I mean, you may have got hit, you may have got kind of physical trauma there as well. But it's more about the things that you didn't get. So a really easy way of thinking about it, and I already touched on saying it's getting that love, attention, validation. That's what we want. Is when you were having a meltdown, when you were really, really angry about something, when you felt desperately sad because a friend had been mean to you, were you able to express these feelings at home? Were you able to have space held for you by your primary caregivers? And did they love you through that process? I.e., was it acceptable? Or were you sent to your room? Were you told to apologize? Were you told to come back when you were feeling calmer or nicer? Did you have things confiscated? Were you spanked? Were you belittled? If you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. Were you shamed? We don't do that in this family. We don't lose our temper, right? That kind of thing. Were you given kind of guidelines as to how you could behave? And if you didn't behave in those ways, were you punished, shamed, dismissed, ignored? It can be very subtle. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about not having felt unconditionally loved, which means not dependent on your grades, not dependent on what haircut you want, not dependent on what you want to wear, not dependent on how pretty, slim, fast at running you are, literally unconditional. And most of us didn't get that. So that's what we're addressing. Again, it's back to that gap. It's about bringing in an inner parent, which is the other half of this work. And the inner parent fills that gap because she can be unconditionally loving, tolerant, patient, kind, nurturing, whatever it was that you really wanted and didn't get. And it's with this, albeit imaginary parent, because she's not real, but you can create a secure attachment with this inner parent. And whatever your background, really, I mean, people have heard about attachment theory, anxious, avoidant, insecure. I tend not to go into that because I think it can be a bit confusing. You're like, wait, hold on. Have I got this? I'm not sure. Am I this? It doesn't matter. Basically, if you didn't get unconditional love, it's okay. You can heal that through the secure connection that you form with your inner parent. So it's kind of amazing. It doesn't matter what your past is. But to answer your question, how does everyone know whether they need it or not? Do you get triggered? So by triggered, just to explain what that means, it's a disproportionate reaction to something. And some people go, oh, but how do I know if it's disproportionate? You know in your body. Like if something's annoying, it's annoying. We can be annoyed. A disproportionate reaction would be being annoyed, but feeling that really physically in a kind of visceral sense, feeling out of control and maybe screaming about it or throwing something or needing to leave the room. That's disproportionate. So when you get triggered by, for example, your kids fighting, maybe you get triggered by mess, maybe you get triggered by loud noise, maybe you get triggered by children being, inverted commas, disrespectful. Maybe you get triggered by defiance. All of these are examples of attachment trauma, actually. But, we don't have to talk about trauma. They're examples of your past coming up in your present, because that disproportionate reaction, and most people can feel this. When you're reacting, I'll give you an example that I used to feel. I used to hate people being late. I took it really personally. Like, that's so disrespectful, it's so rude. Why can't people be on time? Like, I'm here. Why can't they make the effort to be here? That was a disproportionate reaction. Because really, like, who cares if someone's late? It's not a big deal. But I was like feeling really angry, really kind of attacked personally. And I couldn't let it go. That shows you that it's a trigger. When we feel that, we're like, okay, hold on. Is this adult me reacting? It wasn't. I was reacting like a child. So we're not saying that in a kind of derogatory, oh, you're acting like such a child. We're saying, no, you're acting like your inner child. So actually, that part of you needs compassion, not, oh, grow up. Well, no, because that part of you isn't a grown up. She's a child. So she needs what she needs.
Let's pause there
Oh,
real quick, just because
yeah.
I feel like I want to circle back to triggers just a little more, because there's so much goodness in what you said. And I just want to make sure everyone is really clear, because so for women who want to be more conscious, who don't want to do what you've said and, parent with a backpack of old emotional wounds, that's a phrase that really stuck to me for anyone who's interested in this work. I think it's hard when women are in a state of being triggered to really look at it and evaluate it. And I think some women just go about their day and they're just like, oh God, thank God I'm out of that state. If we're really trying to learn from them, how can we see them as a mirror?
Because I don't think any of us want to feel triggered all day. It's not nice. You feel out of control,
Right.
right? So I don't think, I mean, none of the women I work with, obviously, because that's why they come to me. But I think most women have the intention of parenting in a calm, present way. So when you're not calm and present, it feels awful. You feel guilty, you feel ashamed, you feel bad, you feel like you got it wrong, you feel like a failure, right? So we're picking up on the cues which we're being given by our children of those times when we're not reacting proportionately.
Right.
So we're not going, oh my God, I'm a bad person. Just as we're trying to see our children as they're not bad kids, they did something annoying, right? It's not fundamentally their nature is bad. It's the same with us. You're not a bad person. You just lost it. Why did you lose it? You didn't want to lose it. Okay, well, there's something there then. So we track back using the feelings that came up. And this bit's important actually, because people are like, oh, I can't get, is it because exactly the same thing happened to me? Like, let's take the example of children fighting. That can be really triggering for many reasons. And sometimes I was like, but I don't remember fighting, or I don't remember, this same scenario. It's not about the scenario. It's about the feeling that this scenario triggers in you. So say it's your kids fighting or your kids being defiant. How does that make you feel? Or someone being late for me. How does that make me feel? So obviously the superficial level is, well, it's annoying. It's rude. I'm angry. Right. So that's the superficial level. Underneath that, what do you feel? So I'm going on the being late example now. Well, I feel unimportant. I feel stupid. I feel like I don't matter, right? Because no one bothered to try and be on time for me. That's underneath the anger. Okay, so then we've got the real deeply feeling bit that hurts to say it. It might make you quite sad to admit, oh, that's what it is. And it's usually the same with the defiance in the kids. Or the kids fighting, it's often like not feeling safe. So we take this real bottom layer feeling. We're like, okay, when did you feel that way in your past as a child, as a teenager, around your primary caregivers? Usually your parents, could be teacher, could be grandparent. When did you feel that way? That's the clue to what needs to be healed, because that feeling that's coming up isn't adult you now. It's an old stuck feeling that's still in your body that hasn't been processed yet, that is therefore it's in that backpack, like you said, it's been stirred up and it's just coming up. It's not adult use. That doesn't mean use. You know what I mean? It's not
Yes.
yours from adult you. It's your inner child or your inner teenagers. And it's coming up because it's ready to be healed. And it's in your body because at that time, you either weren't psychologically evolved enough to process it yourself. That's why we talk about co-regulation. Our parents were meant to co-regulate us, be there for us as we felt big feelings. It's what we're trying to do with our kids now. Or it wasn't allowed. You didn't feel safe to express it. You knew that your parents would get angry if you expressed it or whatever it was. So you repressed it. You held it in because that's what you needed to do to get through. The thing is, that was what you needed to do at the time. Yes. But now those feelings are still there. We have to release them. If not, we hold on, we hold on, hold on. Not only are they extremely draining, like it drains a lot of energy to keep these feelings down, but also they will end up with the physical symptoms. You'll get autoimmune stuff or digestive stuff or migraines or chronic fatigue or inexplicable rashes or alopecia. All these things are linked to repressed trauma. You need to look at your triggers.
There's a couple pieces of what you said I want to circle back to. And one is this balance of getting curious when we have a trigger. And that's what I meant by a mirror, like using it to show us where healing is available. I think that's fair. But then also reminding ourselves that we're imperfect humans. I think a lot of women go into a shame spiral. I mean, it's the worst feeling in the world if you lose your temper at your children. I'm wondering if you can tell us, if we're trying to be, more conscious, chain breaking parents, how do we tend to ourselves and how do we tend to our children in the event that we act unconsciously, we speak without wisdom, and we regret it?
I think the whole point here is knowing that it's not your fault. And this links back to your past affecting your present. It's not your fault. You're a product of your past. You're a product of your parents' limitations and flaws. And like we said earlier, they are human, just as you are human and flawed and limited. So it's really important to understand, okay, I lost it. It's okay. I haven't irrevocably damaged my children. I didn't act in the way that I wanted. I'm going to put in the repair. As soon as you realize, put in the repair, make them know that it wasn't their fault. And then you put in the repair with yourself. So like you said, it's about looking in that mirror with compassion and curiosity. This is all about realizing that there's a gap there, that you are probably acting in exactly the same way that your parents did, or in the way that was role modeled to you, or in the way that you were made to feel. I had a client just this week who was like, going back to the kids fighting, often I get my clients to look at, okay, so when your kids are fighting, we can often project our own unprocessed stuff onto them. And I get them to look at both sides. Were you ever bullied? Journal about it. Have you ever been a bully? Journal about it. That's the bit that we don't really want to look at. It's easy to go, oh yeah, I was bullied, da 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 da. But were you ever a bully? And be really, really honest. Again, with compassionate curiosity. And this client said that it was really helpful to journal on how she was a bully because through doing that and owning it, it's all about owning your shadow, your unconscious stuff. Through owning it, she realized how much of her bullying behavior was linked to how angry and alone she felt because she wasn't getting the love she needed from her parents. So there's a direct correlation always between how we act and how we were treated. And this is why we're doing the work, right? We don't want to carry that backpack around. And personally, I feel it's our duty to do so. It's not our children's fault we had a difficult childhood. We need to clean the slate so that we're at least parenting from ourselves, not our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents. So that's where we tend to ourselves by inner parenting. Your inner parent is this beautiful, loving, compassionate being or animal or whatever you want her to be, or him. So that's tending to you. That's giving yourself that understanding, that love that you never got, whilst becoming a better mother. They go together. It's like a symbiotic process because let's face it, like I said at the beginning, I know that it's true for me anyway. If I hadn't become a mum, I would probably be a lot more selfish than I am now. A lot less self-aware. It's becoming a mother and having found it really triggering and annoying and difficult and also amazing. We all know that. But that's what's made me into who I am. So we become a better person, not just a better mother.
What's the key to having a repair conversation that feels good on both ends and doesn't, maybe reopen an argument if that's what caused it to begin with?
Really good question. Number one, you cannot repair if you're not in the mood. So if you're still angry or sad or whatever the feeling was about what happened, you've got to get rid of that charge first. You can't fake it. Children pick up on that immediately. It's much better to be open, honest, and say, I'm still a little bit annoyed about that. It's not your fault, but I need to go and calm down and I need just a few moments to myself. Do whatever you need to do. You can't put in the repair when you don't mean it. And you shouldn't, because the kids will feel that that's inauthentic. So that's the first thing. Make sure that you're not still charged up. And secondly, it depends on your child. I mean, I've got 3 children. One of them is very emotionally literate. She likes talking about emotions. She loves it, actually. So I can have a very different repair with her compared to my second daughter, who does not like talking about emotions. She's like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. Doesn't mean she's not very sensitive. In a way, actually, she's more sensitive, but she doesn't like talking about things like that. I didn't realize that until a couple of years ago, and they're now 16 and 14. So this is quite recent. I like talking about emotions. And I realized that when I was putting in the repair with my second daughter, who doesn't like it, I was partly trying to get something out of it for myself. I wasn't meeting her needs because I was like going deep and I'm sorry and this is because of this and I really shouldn't have done that, and just going on, which my elder daughter would have loved. Second one was like, yeah, didn't want to hear. With her, I just now go, I'm sorry about earlier. That's it. Which does not feel like enough to me. That feels really not enough. But that's what she needs. She doesn't need any more. Sometimes I don't put in the repair, actually, because it's about feeling, and obviously they're a bit older, but it's about feeling into what they need from you. So repair can look different, actually. And it's not about us. It's about obviously them understanding that you didn't mean it and that you're human and sometimes you lose it too. But it can look different according to each child.
Yeah, that's helpful. That's helpful. And to just be conscious if there's a child who doesn't want to talk about it. I think in a mothering way, that's my nature too. If, I want it all out on the table, and it's true, I want to feel better.
Yes.
But I see that that can be a little selfish. So I understand what you're saying. Maybe just being able to keep it clean and simple and then leave it feeling like you did your piece. You modeled repair. You modeled, I'm a imperfect human doing my best.
Exactly. And it might, like my third child, a hug. That's it. It doesn't need to be words. It's just like, sorry. Yeah, me too. So yeah, it's about feeling into what your needs are and meeting those needs, right? Because that's probably your inner child that wants to feel okay.
Yeah.
So with a child that doesn't really like to talk or touch, try and think about what their love language is. What do they like to receive? Not just what you want to give. You meet your needs, like journal it out. If you're feeling really bad about what you did, journal it out. You don't need to speak it out to your
Mm.
child. They're not that interested, actually. Right? You can journal it out. So it is about meeting your needs and theirs.
Yeah, I think that that's a really important point that I just want to reiterate, and something that just was really becoming clear to me, even as I was kind of reading more about your work and what you do, is just when you have that rupture, is the word that's coming to mind for me. When you have that rupture, tending to the child, but also tending to yourself. It's a distinction. And I think a lot of women just kind of amble about their day and hope that it doesn't happen again. And I think that can be a little misguided.
No, you need to put in the work to make sure it doesn't. So you mentioned shame spiral earlier, and it's very easy it's very easy to go into one. So what I try and do or tell my clients to do, because I was really bad at this, anything that happened, I'd just go into this pit of I'm a terrible person. Anything to kind of confirm my self-limiting belief that I was bad. So if you're going to go in shame spiral, fine. Do it. Have your little pity party, but set a time limit. So, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Passed on my trauma. I'm the world's worst person. They're better off without me. Whatever it is. And then stop. Okay, stop. Because that's not helping anyone. It's not. It's not helping you not do it again. It's not helping your kids when you're in that state. It's not very nice to yourself. So do it for a bit if you have to. And then go, right, how can I stop doing this again? What can I do to mitigate the circumstances that led to me losing it? Because there will be context. There's always context. We've talked about triggers, but there's also the obvious stuff. How tired were you? Had you eaten? What day of your cycle were you on? Were you on day 1 of your period? Had you had lots of triggers stacking up during the day so that was the straw that broke the camel's back? Was there like lingering annoyance about something that happened 3 days ago that was then like, oh, even more annoying.
Residual kind of. Yeah. Yeah.
You've got to work all these things out. That's necessary. And yeah, it's going to take time. Might be a bit annoying, might be a bit of a hassle, but that's how you move forwards, putting in the work.
I'm curious about a term that for some reason, maybe I need to do some inner work on why this is really a term that rubs me the wrong way. But just to give you a little background for a book I'm writing, I've been doing a lot of research on double standards in parenting and how the man is perceived in the woman. And I feel like this term mom rage is something that's bandied about a little bit right now, not to be insensitive about it, but I haven't heard of dad rage.
Mm.
And I'm curious, there's a part of me that feels like there is an unspoken double standard in parenting, even just in how culturally we see things, where if the dad loses their cool, it's because the dad is being an authoritarian and strong. And if the mom loses her cool, it's like she's unstable. She doesn't have her emotional act together. And I'm curious if you have any insight on that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Obviously, I hate double standards too, so I'm with you. And I think there is a difference between what I call mama rage and why isn't there even a term? I think that's a really good point. But women, in my experience, I've been doing this for 10 years now, women have a different kind of rage. That doesn't mean that either mum rage or dad rage is more or less acceptable than not. But on the whole, and I'm really generalizing here, mama rage is more volatile. It's more unpredictable. It's more chaotic. It's more out of control. And it's quite explosive and it can be quite violent. I've done a podcast episode on this actually, violent mothers, violence in relationships, but especially mothers. Men tend not to be so triggered by kids. Doesn't mean they can't be angry, but they're normally angry about other stuff. And yes, that can be projected onto children. I've got plenty of clients that had angry dads, don't get me wrong, but it's not usually directly because of a child's behavior, whereas mum rage is. So maybe that's why it's got a different term.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. Can you talk a little bit more, just go one layer deeper into that? I haven't heard that. That's really quite
Yeah,
provocative.
another thing that's interesting, like I work with the mother what I call the mother imprint and the father imprint. For me, that's the foundation of this work. We've got to to heal our past. We have to work with the legacy of our mother's behavior. You know, her imprint on us, because when we were born, we were blank slates,
Hmm.
and the father imprint. Most times, like 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, but 9 out of 10 times, whatever the father was like, whatever the mother was like, because obviously different people have different family dynamics, the feeling that women carry towards their mothers is rage. They don't even say anger, they say rage, intense frustration, irritation, rage. What they feel about their fathers is disappointment, sadness. There's pretty much never rage about the dad. I don't know if that's a cultural thing or whether it's a gender thing, because we're the same sex as our mothers. We're kind of like, I know what it's like to be a woman. You should have held it together. You should have behaved better because that's what I'm trying to do now. Maybe we see our mothers more clearly. And you could also say there's correlation. I mean, the women I work with, and I've had to work on this, treat their sons differently. I react differently to my daughters. I have different expectations of them. Obviously, I try extremely hard for that not to be the case. I'm very conscious of it, but it slips in sometimes. I don't know if it's human nature. I don't know if it's our culture. I don't know. But there's this kind of line of rage that goes from woman to woman that I don't see in my work going from woman to man to woman to man, or even boy to man, because my partner works with men. He does the same thing I do, but with dads. And he doesn't really talk about rage so much. It is a female thing. So
That's,
I don't know.
yeah. Well,
I don't know. I think you've made a really good point. I don't know what the reason is, but I do think mama rage is different to dad anger, because it's not directly triggered by kids' behavior. I think mothers are more invested in children. Biologically, we carry them. Even if you adopt a child, you're more the caretaker. We are the caretakers of society. So we attach to our emotions more. My partner always tells me this because we both work with the inner parent and the inner child. But when he works with men, they don't really inner parent. Whereas for me, inner parent is crucial to this work. And we always talk about, why is that? What is the difference between men and women? And he often says, well, women attach to their emotions more. And I think we do. I think we naturally take things more personally because women are co-creators. We're collaborators. We are the feminine side, which all men and women carry, obviously. The feminine energy is relational.
Yes.
The masculine energy in us is singular. So I think men find it easier to do this work, easier to detach from their feelings, easier to think, oh, that's my inner child reacting. We hold on to feelings because I think that's part of what makes us mothers. If you think about a fierce mama bear or a tiger, we kind of, I don't know, this is my hunch. I'm no neuroscientist or anthropologist, but we hold on to these feelings because there could be danger, because we need to take them personally, because we've got a vested interest in the long-term well-being of our kids. And cavemen, supposedly, they go off, shoot their load, go and get meat. They're not, constantly tending to the children. So maybe emotions aren't quite so part of their fabric. I think it would be great to explore this more, but I think that's to do with this mama rage.
Well, that's fascinating. And not only that, I think it also just calls in, again, that invitation for compassion. If we are emotionally invested, I think we've all had that moment where our kids are upsetting us and the partner might say, just calm down. And it's like the worst thing to say. Yes. So we've all been there, probably in an airport. So. Well, we're coming up on time, but I just wanted to touch on one other thing. You talk a lot about how defiance and pushback from kids isn't necessarily negative. And I think you have a refreshing and interesting perspective on that. It's not always fun to parent, but can you speak to why it might actually be really healthy given the context of this whole conversation we've had?
I think kids are really attuned to what makes sense and to what is reasonable. If your kid is pushing back on something, it's probably because your so-called boundary, which often isn't a boundary, it's just a random rule or something that, you've just gone, you can't do that because it makes you feel unsafe somehow or triggered in that moment. If there's no reason to it, they will push back. They'll go, but why? But why? But why? That like endless conversation. If you haven't got a reason, you're going to enter into power play. So I think it's quite a good way of checking in with yourself, whether you're setting an arbitrary rule or whether it is actually a boundary. And who's the boundary for? Is it for you to feel safe or is it for your child? Don't pretend it's for your child if it's for you. It's okay to have a boundary for you. Sometimes I'll say, well, when the kids were smaller, again, going back to fighting, I'd be like, I'm feeling really overwhelmed now. I don't like the noise. It's fine. You can be noisy and do what you need, but I'm going to leave the room now because I'm feeling a bit anxious right now and I don't want to end up shouting. So that was me looking after my needs rather than saying, coming down really heavy on, right, that's it. You go in one room, you go in the other room. Of course, we don't want any kids fighting. Maybe that's a bad example, but you need to be really grounded in why you're setting something and it needs to make sense. Otherwise, it's just power over. You're just exerting authority, which probably goes back to your childhood and a very disciplinarian environment where you were told, well, you do what I say because I said it, because I said so, because I'm the adult. I mean, that's not reasonable. It's not. They're not stupid. And however small they are, things make sense. That's why I always say to my clients, name what you're feeling. Explain it in a child-appropriate way. They
Yeah.
get it. If you're really, really sad, be sad. You don't have to put a brave face on it. Say, I'm feeling actually really quite sad right now. It's a bit like when you're sad, when your toy didn't work anymore because the batteries had run out. Oh, yeah. They don't care. They'll be like, okay. They're like, okay, makes sense. I can feel you're sad. You confirmed that I was right in feeling that you were sad. I'm okay now. That's all they need to know, that they are right in what they're picking up from you. So yeah, naming it, really thinking about when you're saying no to your
Yeah.
child
Well,
for
just
your
because
benefit or theirs.
I'm
Really?
throwing in one personal example, just because you were such a fountain of wisdom, and I just know this is on a lot of moms' minds. I'm having a lot of power play issues with cell phone stuff with my
Mm.
teenager. And I finally had to say, I don't feel safe with you. You know, it makes me feel really nervous. And maybe that's all I have right now. But it does scare me, you know, what's out there, what you're not doing because you are spending time on your phone. And I don't have all the answers. That was a shift for me. I think I was like literally like reading about this and I was like, oh, maybe I just need to name that. Like the reason I'm setting this up is because I'm scared that I'm failing you if I don't, you know, like make sure that you're doing stuff that's not that's analog. I don't want
Yeah,
and I
that
think
makes
we got a little
sense.
bit
And
of a
how did you
response.
feel?
It
How
felt
did you
better.
feel when you said that?
I felt much better because it was not just the arbitrary thing, like you said, had just been like, why? Why do you care? Everyone else is doing it. Well, and I'm just like, I don't have this. I'm like, well, research is showing, lost them already.
Yeah. So
So
you felt better, and how did your child react?
I think that she seemed more open to
I'm sure she
conversing
didn't
because
like it,
she didn't
but
like it. It wasn't like a magic balm because I do like to just like bring it back to the real, but she seemed open to not just being about her, but like humanizing why I feel conflicted and we're still
mm,
working through what the right approach to this is. It's new.
I think the difference is when you are open and authentic and kind of vulnerable, actually, you're being true to yourself, and so you're connecting. We talked about attachment earlier. That's an attachment. You're showing your what you feel in your heart, and therefore you're connecting, even if it's not what they want to hear. And they feel that, and then they are open to connecting back. When we throw out an arbitrary rule, we're not connecting because we're in our head, we're not in our heart. We're just saying whatever, well, I don't know, just you can't. That's not connecting. So that's what parenting is, isn't it? So
Yeah.
we're going back to the beginning. We want to, as much as we can, give our children that secure attachment. That doesn't mean being perfect parent. That means being as authentic as we can possibly be, warts and all. Telling them, I've always told my kids, I'm trying harder. It's so important to me that I try and be the best mum that I can be. Because in the end, and my kids have told me this actually, they've said, when we've done this little game, the love game that we sometimes do at Christmas, like what's one thing that you love about the other person? And my kids have told me, and this was when they were quite little actually, I love that you keep trying to be a better mum. They didn't say that you're a perfect mum. And my take from that, I don't know if that's what they were thinking, but my take from that is if they know I'm trying, it means that they know that they're important enough for me to want to try. And that's all I want, right?
Yeah.
They feel important enough for me. And that's often the root of what happened with our parents. We didn't feel important enough for them to change because they didn't do the work. They didn't change. It was always like, because I said so, go to your room. I'm confiscating that. There wasn't that connection, that human element.
Yeah. Oh, this is such a beautiful place to close. I really appreciate all your reflection and sharing. I always like to end with an opportunity for the whole community to reflect. So, in this area of really addressing your past so that you can become the highest version of yourself, for your partner, for your world, and as a mom, what's one question women could be asking themselves?
When you're having a reaction, how old is the part of me that is feeling this way?
So beautiful. Thank you, Lavinia. This has been a joy. And I know my audience is going to have so many takeaways and insights. Where can we learn more about your work, support you, and follow you?
I'm on Instagram, Facebook. So my handle is at the Inner Child Healing Expert. And my website is my name, laviniabrown.com. And I have a podcast, which is called Becoming Untriggered, which I host with my partner. So we talk about, all this kind of stuff, but how it affects relationships and parenting. So yeah, you can find me there. I'd love, most of it's free, lots of free resources. I'm a big believer in it never being too late to start this work. It really isn't. You can heal your past at any time. And the minute you start healing whatever damage, inverted commas, you think you may have inflicted, which you probably really haven't. So, it's never too late. And there's lots of free resources on my pages. So yeah, I welcome anyone that's interested in this work to just dive in and see if it resonates. Your kids will thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You've got amazing questions, by the way. You really made me think, so thank you.
Thank you. I'm so glad you joined me today. If you're looking for more, feel free to connect with me on Instagram at @WhitneyWoman. And if you enjoyed the show, I invite you to support me by leaving a review or sharing it with a friend. Hope you have an inspired day.